So in theory, it's great to have, company values, right? But there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. If we create these set of behaviors that we know have made people super successful here, how do we go about replicating that? Some people didn't even really know how to articulate their success. Comments and you name it, just super scrappy. But honestly, sometimes scrappy is the way. We don't believe in perfect at ActiveCampaign. In fact, quite the opposite. We talk to the candidates about the expectation to make sure, again, they're aligned with that, because what we don't want is for them to come in and go, what the hell, I didn't sign up for this. This framework is only, and I'm talking about the hiring portion of it, it's only as good as we enable the interviewers.
Hello, Sasha. Welcome to the Hiring on All Cylinders podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Good. I was saying that I'm getting kind of used to the fact that summer's over in New York now, and I can't just wear shorts every single day, which is upsetting.
I know. I can definitely feel that, although I'm going to Bahamas next week. So I'm not to rub it in, but I'm continuing on with the sunshine themes. So
the forever summer in your world.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making me very jealous. We'll skip past that part. So we've got a really exciting topic to discuss here, and something that's really kind of recent at ActiveCampaign. And you've been leading the charge really for building out a hiring, development, and performance framework called the AC Way. So I know this is on the top of the mind of lots of recruiting leaders, how to go about this, how to build something that generates incredible results and moves the needle for companies. So I thought this would be a really good topic that we could jump into today. So I guess to start from the kind of origin story, really, what is the AC Way and how did that journey start for you and the team?
Yeah, great. And I'm super excited to talk about this. This is where I geek out. So a year before this came to life, the CEO of ActiveCampaign came to me and said, I want an interview framework, a rubric. And I was kind of like, okay, I can go, multitude of different ways with that. And so through a series of ongoing conversations, that interview rubric turned into this, interview performance framework that doesn't just stop at hiring, but bleeds through the entirety of the employee, journey or life cycle. And so the AC Way, the ActiveCampaign way, factors of success are all encompassing or inclusive of our company values, our core values, and the behaviors that inform those values. So in theory, it's great to have, company values, right? Of course, but there's a lot of room for misinterpretation, right? So by creating these factors of success and the behaviors that tie into them, we're actualizing those values. So again, what turned into this quick kind of rubric and assessment turned into this massive framework that is now leveraged throughout the entire company.
That's awesome. And was there a particular pain point that you had or that your CEO was seeing that encouraged this? For example, you were finding it hard to close candidates, or retention was an issue, or was there something, or was it just this is something we need and we're seeing competitors do it, or it's just something we should do?
Yeah, I think it was multi-pronged, honestly. I think there was a desire to create this really kind of consistent methodology around who we are, how we operate, what the expectations are upon joining the company, and also to drive top performance internally, right? So I think, if we create these set of behaviors that we know have made people super successful here, how do we go about replicating that, right? The other piece is definitely retention. Now, with that being said, there's so many external factors that go into, retention. So I think it's hard to say, oh, this hiring framework is going to just magically, drive that number down, right? But I think, if we can create just a little bit more structure and a little bit more standardization, we can certainly help to move the needle with retention, right? And so again, there's several factors that go into that, but that was one of the hopes and dreams of creating the framework.
Talentful provides flexible recruiting solutions to the world's most ambitious companies. Are you thinking about ways to add flexibility to your talent function? With recent market volatility and hiring set to return to growth mode in the near future, there's never been a better time to choose the right partner to help you scale. Talentful's embedded sourcing, recruiting, coordination, and talent advisory services have been trusted by the world's leading brands. Companies such as Atlassian, Microsoft, Expedia, Pinterest, Waymo, and more. Whether you're hiring across engineering, go-to-market, or G&A, Talentful has got you covered. To find out how Talentful can help you, visit talentful.com. That seems like quite a daunting task. Your CEO coming to you and saying, look, we want to build this rubric that defines, how we hire, how we develop people, how we measure performance. And, ultimately people are the key to business success. So that's a real big task and a big responsibility. How did you start? Like, what was the start of that journey? Once you had that conversation to kind of putting one foot in front of the other and getting started.
So what's interesting is a skill or a competency that's like hugely, highly valued at ActiveCampaign is being a utility player and really being able to take things on that are kind of outside your day-to-day, right? And so frankly, I saw this as an opportunity to widen my scope and not purely focus on just, people hiring TA all day. It was really a massive cross-functional undertaking, right? So I did what I would call like a tour a la tenured employees at AC. The employees that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of ActiveCampaign for almost 6 years, so I had a sense and flavor for these behaviors, but it really required quite a bit of cross-functional collaboration, right? So ELT or executive leadership team buy-in, IC buy-in, folks that have been here for a long time, kind of ran the gamut. But I will describe the work I did as kind of project managing or program managing with the CEO, right? Because I had to extract a lot of information from his brain and turn that into, a real life kind of framework here. So it like I said, I went on this tour, spoke with about, I didn't want to speak with too many people because then too much opinion kind of overkill, right? So I met with about a dozen folks, again, at the IC level, all the way through to the executive level, and asked them each a series of questions to understand, in their opinion, what has made them successful, right? Most of those employees had, I'll call, a non-linear trajectory within AC. And so their opinions were incredibly valuable. So I took all of that information, and some of it was super thematic, right? So it's like taking that and doing a ton of research. Amazon does something similar called the Bar Raiser program, a ton of research within, different companies that built something similar. And that's kind of how I started it. It was, ongoing meetings with the CEO and trying to continue to pull things out of his brain, and a lot of iteration. That's one of our core values, actually. And so it was a way for me to really bring that to life as well.
And through that process, speaking to the people in your organization that had a good tenure, was there anything that surprised you, that you had gone in with a certain assumption that was kind of proven wrong, or some contrarian kind of view?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it was super thematic, but frankly, there were a lot of, not all of it was thematic. So I will say, what surprised me the most was probably some people didn't even really know how to articulate their success and how they were successful, right? It was kind of like, I just did a great job. I worked hard, but so I think it was up to me to really double click into those things and understand or extract, make it more tangible, right? And turn them into actual behaviors. And so, I think like I said, I'm fortunate. I've been here so long. I know most of those people. And so it was easy to kind of have that dialogue with them, to challenge them on, well, why do you feel that way? Or, what do you attribute that to, et cetera.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I can totally see how that would happen.
Yeah.
And did you think that, when you did open up those conversations, that you were able to pull out of them what made them successful? And was there a theme across the high performers across the company?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think the difficult part was like taking all the context and conversation and whittling it down to 2 words, right? Like 2 behaviors that go really well together that are kind of witty, and you know what I'm saying? They're can capture you or capture your attention. And so like that was the really challenging part. But at the end of the day, they were really excited about the potential of creating a framework that will bring in more folks that exemplify our behaviors and the expectations that really, really have made all these people just thrive within the company, right? So I think it was exciting for them. I think they, initially they were a little bit skeptical, like, is this just another project? Or, not realizing how meaningful it could be. I failed to mention also, I had a really strong partnership with the L&D team and the HR team as well. In terms of, the L&D team obviously has worked with a number of different learning frameworks that create competency-based, banks and models. And again, like at the end of the day, the AC way is unique to us, right? So I think like company values should be, company values should be, nobody else should be able to claim them but us, right? Core competencies, functional competencies, of course, analytical, driven, those anybody can claim when it comes to role specific, but we really wanted this to be unique. And by meeting with all those employees and getting all that buy-in and doing that tour, it all ended up, coming together, and there was a lot of validation in there as well.
I was going to ask, what was the project team like? What did that look like? Did that involve you, the CEO, people in your TA team? You just mentioned L&D, HR. Who was involved in kind of that SWAT team to build this AC way?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was predominantly myself and our CEO, with support from L&D. The L&D team was hugely helpful as it relates to like how we built out the training for the folks that would be assessing for these behaviors, what we're calling the high graders. So they helped, again, build out the training module that we built in-house. Then I would say the HR team in terms of getting their buy-in, right, and helping to identify any kind of flags or areas that we would need to adjust that may not land well, right? Especially as it relates to like the verbiage we were using, and the inclusivity component was super important as well. And then, of course, our DEI team as well, because a big part of why we or a lot of companies use these types of frameworks is to mitigate bias. Because at the end of the day, if you have an objective interviewer, like we call ours high graders, you lower the risk of, frankly, assessing for things that don't predict on the job success. So this is like that objective, way of assessing for those things. So the DEI team was super helpful as well, and the communications team. I mean, it was definitely a project team, and talent operations as well. My right hand in the project was my talent operations analyst. And she kind of project managed, in the backgrounds, everything, and couldn't have done it without her.
In terms of the size, how big is the company? Is ActiveCampaign?
We are about 950-ish employees around the world, I think I want to say between about 950 and 1,000 at this point. And
the AC Way is a global framework, so it's not different for different locations or different regions. It's a kind of cross-location methodology and framework.
It is. Now, where it will differ is a large chunk of the AC Way is surrounded by the customer, right? It's really customer focused. with TA, for instance, our customers, stakeholders, candidates. So the way we go about looking at the framework and saying, okay, well, how does this actually play out in my day-to-day versus an engineer versus a customer success manager? That's where it kind of varies. And of course, there are regional nuances, cultural nuances and the like. But at the end of the day, the expectation around these behaviors is one and the same.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned before that you kind of program managed, this with the CEO. And, it sounds like a relatively decent sized project team with, L&D, comms, D and I, your talent ops team, there was a decent amount of external support from different functions. Was there a methodology used to project manage? Any tools that you found really helpful? Is there anything that really kept you, kept you performing and moving forwards? That you're like, okay, that was great. I'd do that again if I was to manage another project.
Honestly, no. I think where I really leaned in, Chris, was my relationship with the CEO and the partnership that I've built with him over the last several years, and slacking quite a bit. Of course, we built out a project plan in Google, but I can't say this tool magically helped us create this framework. Like, no, it was all ongoing live conversation and interaction. Persistence. Obviously the CEO is busy, quite busy. So, but this was a huge priority for him. So he made a lot of time to partner with me and make sure that I had the information I needed. And again, it was constant iteration throughout. In this sheet, like comments and you name it, just super scrappy. But honestly, sometimes scrappy is the way, right? And this is not something that I could just pull from the net. This is homegrown. This is, like I said earlier, unique to the company, and so it just took a lot of time, and like I said, persistence is key.
Yeah, I think this is really good actually, because I think a lot of people feel like and get almost paralyzed when they're doing a project like this, which is a big project. It's got a lot of potential ramifications, for the company, and it could have a lot of impact. They kind of don't want to move forwards unless they have this tool that can manage the project, or they have this and that. So I really like that you had this kind of scrappy approach. So you built a project kind of framework was that in Google Sheets or something?
In Google Sheets, yep. And my talent ops team kind of, again, they managed kind of the project itself, and who was responsible for what, the deadline, timeline, outstanding. And I will say something that's unique to us and maybe other companies, but something that was definitely on my side is that we don't believe in perfect at ActiveCampaign. In fact, quite the opposite. And so I knew that I had been empowered to push this project out despite it not being perfect, right? So as long as I pushed something out, something that was really great, right? But that was still requiring some adjustment and iteration along the way. Like that was where it was at.
That's great. And how long did you, when you first started the project and you were like, okay, this is what we got to do. I'm just interested, like, what was the estimated time frame you gave yourself versus what you actually achieved?
Oh, I was like, I can do this in, a couple months, right? For sure. I was like, an interview rubric? Got it. No. From the day I had that conversation with the CEO to the day I rolled it out company-wide was a year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, another common lesson. I think normally like this take a lot longer than you think.
Yeah. And there was no line in the sand. There was no, this has to be done by this date, really. It was just, let's, there was also things that happened in between that took, precedence or whatever, or priority. And that's just the nature of business. But this was this was a massive priority for me. And again, because I am not a functional expert within, competency-based methodologies, it took a lot of intentionality, right? To learn and research and meet with folks at other companies that have done something different. And then again, kind of give it our own spin.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think, a year to deliver something of this impact and, that can have such a dramatic difference on the company in a lot of different ways is still a really good time frame.
Yeah.
And one of the keys of rolling anything like this out, whether it's a new piece of software or a new process, is it's only as good as the engagement and the buy-in you get from people actually using it, right? And there's a lot of people in your company, nearly 1,000 people. How did you get the buy-in? How did you get people excited? How did you get people to use it and see it as valuable? Like, what approach did you have there?
Yep. So I will say this, and maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. Having the CEO behind it helped, right? This wasn't an option. This was, hey, this is the new way, and again, the values had already been in place. So that wasn't foreign. I think people were really excited by, okay, now we have a consistent language around what these values actually mean. So it's more transparency, right? And that transparency landed really well. There was a desire, there was an appetite for that. So I think that was, first and foremost. I had the opportunity to present the framework at a company quarterly meeting, and with the CEO and others. And so, I had an opportunity. I had the whole company there to be able to share the expectations, and then from there, we slowly rolled out the process in different pieces. So first, it was okay. Let's select the high graders, right? Who are the folks that are department I'll call it department agnostic interviewers who are specially trained on these behaviors, how to assess these behaviors. And so first it was identifying those folks, training them up on the framework, and then just rolling it out, into the interview process. Now we only, for the interview process, we only do it at a certain level. So for all other roles, we talk to the candidates about the expectation to make sure, again, they're aligned with that, because what we don't want is for them to come in and go, what the hell, I didn't sign up for this, right? So that carrying on that transparency theme. Beyond that, we had an upcoming performance review cycle. And so, not only are we doing this, we're rolling this out to the company, but we're saying to them, look, you better get, really comfortable with this concept, because in your upcoming review, we are going to have you start thinking about how you exemplify these behaviors. So again, we kind of did it in pieces. And now, we have it on our Confluence page. I mean, it's really the gospel. And so look, at the end of the day, we're still driving adoption. It's, as we hire new people, it's bringing them up to speed on it. But again, I hold true to the fact that there was definitely an appetite for more transparency around the expectations.
Yeah. Awesome. And I know it's pretty early in the kind of journey of kind of getting this out there and starting to use it, but what are the kind of early results and, feedback you're getting from the team? Is there anything you're noticing in terms of, quality of hires you're making, retention, performance? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah. So it's only been about 6 months since we've started interviewing, leveraging the framework. And frankly, we need about a year to be able to look back at the data. Now, with that being said, I think there's definitely more scrutiny around hiring decisions, right? Now that we've introduced kind of that objective perspective, if you will, or interviewer. So again, we're probably going to look back in a year and double click into kind of anything that's that we're identifying as, who are our top performers. Now, looking back at, did we hire anybody that the high grader was a no on, right? And is there anything, did they leave within 6 months, right? And we can point back to that. Now, with that being said, Chris, like quality of hires, and I'm not going to get into this, but it's so difficult, right, to measure. And a part of what this is looking at, interview effectiveness, right? Which is really, again, really difficult to do. We just recently got back together with a group of interviewers, and we got some really strong feedback. And I think, again, it's been constant feedback adjustment. That's like the only way. And I think the biggest theme is that they're loving getting exposure to interviewing for roles that they would never partner with in the company or interview for ever, right? Due to the fact that they're team agnostic. And so I think that's been really interesting. And it takes a lot of critical thinking. So it's getting them to kind of think uniquely about how to have these types of, conversations, which frankly is a skill you can take forever with you, right? And this framework is only, and I'm talking about the hiring portion of it, it's only as good as we enable the interviewers, right? So we've really been focusing on investing in that group and making sure it's super tight.
Yeah, makes total sense. And kind of looking back over this kind of 12-month period, the execution, the rollout, for kind of aspiring talent leaders looking to do something similar, is there any advice that you would give to them of things to watch out for, things to really kind of focus on from your learnings?
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think what's most important is that you can back into the goal of the program, because there's so many ways to go about it. And you made a good point earlier around paralysis. Like I would say the analysis paralysis is real when it comes to this stuff. And again, it's because there's so many opinions and cooks in the kitchen. But I think, it's really getting comfortable with understanding what the executive level goals are, and being able to back into those, knowing that what we do involves a lot of subjectivity, right? So that's kind of my angle, and I would also say there's a lot of companies doing a version of this, and I kind of I casted a wide net in terms of picking bits and pieces from each kind of, methodology and making it our own. And I would recommend doing that for sure, because I got some really, really great ideas. But yeah, and again, I don't know if I were a brand new talent leader, if I would have been able to do this. Brand new at AC. I attribute a lot of the success of the framework to the fact that I've been here for a long time, and I've really experienced a lot of these behaviors. I've seen them. I've seen people flourish in the company, again, non-linearly, linearly, whatever, as a result. So I think it's not a one size fits all, and I just want to make that really clear. It's not, and it's an imperfect framework. And that's, again, people are a product, right? But can be hugely beneficial and successful if you have a strong point of view around what outcome you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I guess as well, like you've also grown through the company and seen that journey for yourself at ActiveCampaign. So that must give you a really interesting point of view to be building something like this. So this has been super interesting. A question I ask everyone before we kind of wrap this up is, what are you most excited about regarding the future of TA? There's lots going on at the moment, lots happening, lots changing. What's exciting to you?
Yeah, I think, and like I am a TA professional through and through. I bleed recruiting. And the thing that I'm most excited about, I think, is the fact that, there was a point in time where recruiting was super duper transactional. And that's why, recruiting and talent acquisition are, have different connotations, if you will, now. Right. And the fact that talent acquisition, which is where we're headed and where I take great pride in my team, is that we are true partners to the business. And the more embedded these talent acquisition professionals can become into the business with their leaders, they're going to be invited, right? I'm going to use the word like invited into succession planning conversations, talent gap analysis, right? Like there's so much more to be done than just checking a box or putting a butt in a seat. And so that's what really excites me. And I'm really proud to have a team that I believe are seen and viewed in a way that folks are coming to them, asking their opinions, So that's, I think that the ongoing, humanized kind of human element to recruiting is not going away. And this just, continues to kind of validate that further is looking at these folks like really incredibly strategic and additive to the process, not as a roadblock, right? So
yeah, I totally agree with you. That seems to be where our industry is moving, and it's only positive. So I agree, that's a really exciting move. Now, as we wrap this up, where can people find you? Learn more about the AC Way and ActiveCampaign. Can we find you online?
Yeah, please. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Sasha Katz Murphy is my name on LinkedIn. And then check out activecampaign.com. On our careers page, you'll actually see the AC Way framework and the expectation around how we leverage the framework throughout the interview process. So take a look at that, and I think it will give you a better sense and flavor for what it actually looks and feels like. And please reach out to me if this is interesting to you, and if you're looking to do something similar. I welcome the conversations.
Perfect. Well, yeah, these talent leaders can take inspiration from what you've done, like you did with many others, like you mentioned. And for everyone who's listening, if you want to hear more great podcasts like this, please like and subscribe. Hiring on All Cylinders, you can find us on Spotify and all the major podcasting platforms. Catch you there. Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you, Chris.